Hello and welcome to the Spring-Summer 2017 Before, During, and After Steps for the School Assessment Coordinator. To begin, make sure that you have your School Assessment Coordinator checklist with you while you are going through these steps. Please work with the District Assessment Office to ensure that all of your test administrators have active usernames and passwords. Test administrators will need this access in order to administer tests. Also, it's important that they should become familiar with the Test Administrator User Guide, which is on the FSA portal prior to testing, and have access to it during the test. Students will be uploaded in the pre-ID process by our IT department directly into TIDE. Prior to testing, please make sure that the students uploaded are correct in TIDE. Also, please make sure that any accommodations that a student will need for testing is correctly coded. In order for students to participate in a computer-based test, these students also have to be listed as eligible for that test in TIDE. As in the past, the testing warehouse staff will be sending you your secure materials and your manuals. Please make sure that third grade tests and any other paper pencil tests that you receive are kept in secure lock storage. Only 3 people are allowed to have a key to this room. Also, please make sure that when you receive your planning sheets, work folders, and worksheets, that you have enough of them for your staff and students. Please remember that you have to check your materials in before testing begins to make sure that you have everything you will need. If you need additional materials, please contact the assessment office. Before testing begins, you will be managing student information in TIDE. Be sure to get your TIDE user guide, which is available on the FSA portal. The TIDE User Guide has specific instructions on how to perform the following tasks: adding students, assigning accommodations, printing test tickets, printing labels for paper-based tests, and editing student demographic information. Before testing, you will have to print test tickets and perhaps on-demand labels. Prior to the administration, print your test tickets to distribute to test administrators. Test tickets are generated in TIDE. Test tickets are what contain the login information for students to be able to test. Each student must have a test ticket to log into a computer-based test. Please be mindful that you can print your test tickets, arrange them by roster, and then put them all in an envelope to give to teachers when they come to pick up their materials on test day. For paper pencil tested students, you may have to print some pre-ID labels if they are new to your school. Please make sure that you use the provided label paper. Instructions on how to print test tickets and on-demand labels are also available in the TIDE User Guide. Test administrators are going to have a process for collecting required administration information. Please map out a plan for test administrators so they know what to do prior to the testing event. The information that they're going to need to gather include students assigned to them in their room, a roster basically of student names and student IDs, the grade level, accommodations provided and accommodations used by students, signature of a test administrator and the school assessment coordinator, dates and times when the secure materials were received and returned, attendance information on students, the session ID for a computer-based test, and of course, the unique security numbers of tests and/or passage booklets assigned to each student if applicable. All of this information needs to be kept on file with the school coordinator and also for the teacher as an in case if something comes up later. As you are already aware, seating charts must be maintained for every testing event. Test administrators are required to have a seating chart for each group of students in their room during testing. Test administrators must record all required information that is listed on the seating chart. We have provided a blank seating chart for you as a guide to follow. Also, please note that test administrators must notate which is the front and the back of the room. After testing, all seating charts must be copied, copies must be kept at the school, and the original must come back to the district assessment office in the district coordinator only box. Prior to testing, you may want to begin looking for proctors. Proctors are just a second set of eyes in a room. If you do assign proctors to testing rooms, please make sure that you follow the guidelines in the manual for proctors. Also, please make sure that they understand their responsibilities and they sign all of the security documents so that they know what they can and cannot do in a secure testing room. They also have to sign the security logs when they come into and out of a room. The DOE, along with Hillsborough County Public Schools, strongly recommends that a proctor in every room is a second set of eyes, and we would strongly encourage that. Another thing that needs to happen before testing is arrange to test special program students. You may be testing virtual students and/or home education students at your school. Please be courteous and make arrangements for them to be able to test with you. Also, if they, for whatever reason, can't test, please provide them a make-up situation. If you run into any problems with virtual instruction or home education programs, please contact the assessment office. We'll be more than happy to help make this work. It's important to ensure that the proper implementation of accommodations is done during the testing event. Please see Appendix A in the manual for detailed information regarding the allowable accommodations for students with disabilities and ELLs. When testing students with accommodations, prior planning is key. Make sure that students are receiving exactly what they need in their IEPs, 504s, or ELL plans. It's also important to note that if a student gets extended time, that they actually receive extended time. Please plan accordingly. Do not test a student late in the day if they will not be able to receive their accommodations. Make sure that the test administrators have also been properly trained regarding accommodations so they know exactly how to administer the test with a student with accommodations. If a student receives oral presentation, it's important to know the exact steps for that accommodation. It is different depending on the test. Please be reminded that a reading test is never fully read to a student. Students can get help with words and phrases, and students can get help with something read in the distractors and question choices, but if it is over a sentence, that cannot be read to them. Please see Appendix A for detailed instructions on oral presentation. Also, please be reminded that oral presentation is an accommodation for 504 and ESE students. Oral presentation, the way it is mapped out within the Appendix A, is not for ELL students. ELL students get help with words and phrases and not direct oral presentation as listed in the Appendix A oral presentation accommodations. It is important that you meet with your technology coordinator prior to the testing event to make sure that all the computers are ready to go for testing. Please review the instructions and information for technology coordinators located on the FSA portal, as well as all test administration and security policies and procedures included in the manual. Your technology coordinator can help you create a plan for handling issues during testing or as they arise. Technology coordinators are also required to sign the test administration and security agreement. They should be involved in all planning meetings to provide input on logistics and to resolve any network issues. Also, please make sure that your technology coordinator has a list of all of the error codes prior to testing starting. Before testing, be sure to prepare the test setting, computers, and devices. Tests should be administered in a room that is comfortable with good lighting. Make sure that the rooms are adequately ventilated and free of distractions. Sufficient workspace for paper, pencil, and computer-based tests should be provided for students to use their worksheets, their work folders, their planning sheets, or reference sheets. Students must not be able to easily see other students' test materials or computer screens. Be sure to check the configuration of your testing rooms to make sure you will be able to provide a secure environment for the test. It may be necessary to have computer blocks or screens so that people can't see the side of a computer and see answers. Also, be sure to remove all unauthorized visual aids from walls. If in doubt, cover or take it down. After you have done your initial walkthrough of the testing settings, please make sure your technology coordinator follows up and verifies that all computers and devices meet the requirements needed to administer the online tests. Before each test session, test administrators should launch the secure browser on each computer or device. Students should not have to start computers on the day of the test. Before testing, it is your responsibility to train all test administrators and proctors, including those who are non-school based. You must train several employees to act as possible alternates as well. In the absence of sufficiently trained administrators, postpone testing until trained personnel are available. If you run into any problems training, please contact the assessment office immediately and we will be here to assist you. During your training, please be sure to mention the following things. Test administrators must read and be familiar with all appropriate sections of the manual, and they must receive the manual at least 72 hours prior to administering a test. Test administrators who will be administering a test to students using CBT accommodations or other allowable accommodations for paper pencil testing must be familiar with the accommodations prior to giving them. Test administrators should refer to the Test Administrator Checklist, which is in Appendix D. Test administrators must be familiar with all policies related to the use of calculators, specifically that calculators may only be used during Sessions 2 and 3 of Grades 7 and 8 Mathematics and Session 2 of FSA EOCs, and that the old Algebra NGSSS test uses the 4-function calculator versus the scientific calculator for all FSA assessments. Besides training test administrators, you will also have to train proctors. Be reminded that school personnel and volunteers approved by the district may serve as proctors. Also, while proctors are not required in rooms with fewer than 26 students, the DOE and Hillsborough County Public Schools strongly encourages the use of proctors in all test administrations to help reduce testing irregularities. Again, having a proctor is a second set of eyes. Also, to ensure test security, the DOE and Hillsborough County Public Schools discourages testing students in large groups, for example, in the cafeteria. However, in the event that students are tested in a larger than acceptable group, the appropriate number of proctors must be present during the testing session. Before testing, make sure that you have a plan for how you are going to manage electronic devices and breaks. Determine your policy for the storage of electronic devices and then communicate that plan to the test administrators before testing. Test administrators should also inform students prior to testing so they know what to do with their electronic devices. Please remind students that if a phone is within reach, their test will be invalidated. Also, please remind students that any kind of electronic device, even if it is broken or doesn't have a battery, will be cause for an invalidation. Also, instruct your test administrators before testing how breaks will be provided in between the middle school math test. You can have a short break in between sessions 2 and 3, or you can have an extended break. This is up to the school, so please make sure that it is a school-wide decision so that this proper part of the script can be read. When explaining electronic devices and breaks to staff and students, please remind the students that if they take a break for whatever reason and they access their electronic device during that break, their test will be invalidated. Also, ensure that test administrators are aware of how to secure a student's computer or device during a break. If it is a short break, they can just put a piece of paper over the screen or turn the computer monitor off. If it is a longer break, they can pause their test and then they will have to create a new test session and provide a new session ID when the student comes back. For paper pencil testing, for short breaks, the books can be closed, and if it's a longer break, the books can be collected. For computer-based tests, test administrators must be trained on how to create, start, monitor, and close test sessions. This is available in the manual. Test administrators may be able to assist students with errors when logging in and help to try to resolve minor technical issues, but if it becomes very cumbersome or the test administrator doesn't know how to help, they need to contact the assessment coordinator immediately. Test administrators also need to be trained on how to administer the practice tests. Test administrators should be able to access the practice test to become familiar with the available tools prior to administering a practice test and definitely prior to the actual administration of the live test. Things to think about prior to testing are when test administrators are instructed to contact you. Please have a plan in place for the following circumstances. A student can't participate because they haven't taken a practice test, or a student is having trouble logging in for the first time. A test administrator does not have a test ticket for a student. A first name or student ID is not correct on the ticket. A student is in the wrong test or the wrong accommodated form. A student refuses to acknowledge the testing rules. A defective writing or reading passage booklet is discovered. A test administrator is concerned that a student is unable to begin or even finish a test. A disruption occurs, or for EOC and retake administrations only, a student has not completed the test at the end of the allotted time and will need additional time continuing. All of these are common instances across a testing event. Please be sure to have your response to them ahead of time. As noted on the prior slide, students have to take a practice test prior to taking the live test this spring. Therefore, you will need to schedule and arrange practice tests as described in the FSA CBT manual. You need to instruct school staff to make students aware that they can access practice tests on their own time, and parents can even check out the tests to see what their students will be taking this spring. Students who require accommodations must also complete the appropriate accommodated practice test. A practice test's accommodated forms of the practice test and scripts are available on the portal. On each day of testing, you are going to be responsible for providing test administrators with their test materials before testing. They could be test booklets, test tickets, work folders or CBT worksheets, writing passage booklets, planning sheets, reading passage booklets, reference sheets, and/or calculators. Please be sure that the appropriate materials are in the bins for your teachers. Beyond providing test administrators with appropriate materials, you will also be maintaining test security during the testing event. You should be monitoring each testing room to ensure that test administrators and perhaps proctors are following the policies and procedures put in place. The technology coordinator must also be made available during testing to help answer any questions that might arise. Please make sure that security logs and seating charts are being completed properly and that all of the administration information is being maintained in each testing room. The phone number for the assessment office is 272-4341. You will notice that it's mentioned on this slide a few times. It's important to remember that if there is an interrupted internet connection, students cannot continue to test. If that connection will likely not be restored, please contact our office. Also, if other things are happening where there's an interruption in testing and it keeps going back and forth, contact us. Also, make sure that your technology coordinator is in the loop of what's happening and that they have error messages on hand so they can assist. If you need to have a test reopened or a test session reopened, please contact us at 272-4341. As mentioned previously, there are instances where test administrators are required to contact you if a student doesn't do something. One of those is when they refuse to sign the testing rules acknowledgement. Any student who refuses to sign this should still be allowed to take the test. It just needs to be recorded that they refuse to sign. This can just be notated on the seating chart. During the testing event, you should be monitoring student progress and completion rates in TIDE. You can check this in the participation reports to just keep on track. Detailed information is available in the TIDE user guide. Also, you are required to supervise the makeup administrations. Please make sure that all test security is followed during makeup administrations and test sessions are given in order as prescribed earlier. At the conclusion of testing, you are required to update student information. If it was discovered during testing that something was incorrect, update it in TIDE immediately following the test. Contact us if you have any difficulties. The instructions for updating information are available in the TIDE user guide. Also, if you feel that a test needs to be invalidated, please contact the assessment office immediately and before the student leaves campus from the testing event where you think it should be invalidated. A lot of times we do not invalidate assessments, and as long as the student doesn't leave campus, we are able to save the test record. Therefore, it is imperative that you contact us prior to the student leaving. 272-4341. You are now required to record accommodations. Ensure that all accommodations provided to and used by students are recorded on each record of required administration information. This documentation may be necessary in the case of an investigation regarding possible testing irregularities. At the conclusion of testing, make sure you store your test tickets. We will alert you on how to return them to us. Also, please make sure you file the signed test administration and security agreements as well as the test administrator prohibited activities agreements on campus for the remainder of this school year and into next year until the next administration of the test. Finally, test booklets must be packaged according to the instructions in the manual. The District Assessment Coordinator Only box, or DCO, is due at the end of testing. We will send you step-by-step instructions along with a label at the end of the testing event. When testing is over, it is important to go to the FSA portal and complete the comment form. The DOE really does use this information to help make testing better. Thank you for ensuring a secure and successful test administration. Happy testing!